Hi, my name is Julia McEwen and I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, or OT. My job is to help children to participate in daily activities or occupations to the best of their ability. Right now, a new occupation for many of our children is participating in virtual learning. A big part of how I do my job is that I give educators, teachers, parents, caregivers, anybody working with children strategies to help the children to participate, to feel engaged, and to feel good about how they're doing. I was hoping to make this short educational video to provide parents and educators and caregivers, anybody working with children, with some strategies to give you a few less things to think about or to figure out when you're helping these children to fully participate and engage in online learning. This video is for educational purposes only. If you have questions about a specific child, please do consult directly with an occupational therapist. Movement is a huge component of learning, especially for children. In a classroom, there are a lot of natural opportunities for movement. If a child has to get up and deliver something to the teacher's desk, or they have to look around the room for something, or they have to get up to get their lunch bag or their water bottle, when they're sitting at a desk doing virtual learning, there's often many less opportunities for just that natural movement to get just a little wiggle break. So let me tell you a little bit about movement and sitting down. So our brains are actually about 80% less available when we're sitting down versus when we're standing up. A lot of teachers use Cosmic Kids Yoga, they use Go Noodle, they use Jack Hartman, and these great songs that are widely available on YouTube to help kids do these big body break movements. Those are fantastic. The kids love them, the kids enjoy them. My own kids absolutely love those videos, and those are great options to get the kids taking a break and getting up and moving. I want to give you a few other ideas of things that your students can also do just to take a really small, natural movement break that they may have gotten if they had just gotten up out of their desk. So one idea is just to ask your students to stand up during an activity and do some type of movement to answer a question rather than verbally answering a question. So you can tell your students, I want you to reach up high when the answer is yes, or I want you to crouch down low when the answer is no. Another great thing to do is having your students move their heads. So when you move your head, it gives information and input to your inner ear, and that's your movement system. It's called your vestibular system. So you get lots of information to your movement system when you're standing up and moving around, but you also can get a very rich amount of information just by moving your head. So another great way to engage your students is to ask them big yes or no questions and tell them you want to see their heads nodding or shaking and really get their heads moving. One strategy that I love to use if I'm working with a child virtually and they're doing a lot of sitting and desk work, I get them to do a postural warm-up, I call it. So you push your hands together, you try to pull your hands apart. You can do it this way too. Pull your hands apart. I get them to reach up high, get them to make cactus arms, and then do a few chair push-ups where they're just pushing themselves up off their chairs. And if you try that yourself, you actually feel a little bit refreshed. You can feel that you've gotten a little bit of movement input and it feels good. It warms up your postural muscles and helps you to sit back and re-engage. Another really nice way to get kids taking a little break and refocusing is doing activities that cross the midline of the body. So that means when we cross one side of our body over to the other side. And what that does is it gets the two sides of our brain talking to each other and communicating to each other, and that actually helps us to refocus. So there's a couple of little tricks that you can do. One is my 6-year-old loves the arm pretzel. So you make your hands straight, you cross them over, clasp your hands together, and you zip them up. And then you can take a few nice deep breaths, get your class to take a few deep breaths, and that's actually really refreshing. This position is really calming and refreshing and refocusing. It's also known as the hookups position. If anybody is familiar with Brain Gym, which is a fantastic program, they have a warm-up that's called PACE, P-A-C-E, the PACE Brain Gym warm-up. This is widely available on YouTube. If you search for the PACE Brain Gym warm-up on YouTube, you will find lots of videos that are explaining this. So movement is very important to how we feel and how children feel throughout the day. It's important to their attention and to their focus and their ability to sit and listen. But what's really important too is also moving while you're learning. Like I mentioned, your brain is 80% less available when you're sitting down, which means that if you're moving or standing while you're learning, it actually helps your brain to integrate the concepts that you've learned. So if you can come up with ways to get your students to move while you're teaching a concept and move within the concept that you're teaching, then that will help them even more. So this is really easy to integrate into math, for example, and I've seen teachers do that this week and it's been wonderful. So if you're talking about numbers, you're coming up with number related answers, you can get the kids to do a movement that number of times each time a kid comes up with an answer. You can even get your class to decide what movement they're going to be doing that number of times to get the answers. Another great way to incorporate movement right into the learning itself is to ask your students to put their pencil kit or pencil case across the room. And you're going to ask them to, you're going to give them a question or give them something to think about, ask them to walk across the room in a fun or specific way, grab their pencil, come on back and write down their answer. And then that will integrate the movement in with the thinking. So with the really young kids, you can do animal walks over to their pencil case to grab their pencil and come on back. For older kids, you can do lunge walks or squat hops or plank walks or something a little bit more complicated and fun to get them to be moving while they're thinking and while they're learning. Where available for parents and caregivers, have your children change chairs if they can, or change seats. If you have a seat that itself moves, that's a wonderful, wonderful tool and strategy. I am very fortunate to have 2 big rocking chairs and 1 small person-sized rocking chair, and I get my kids to do a lot of chair shuffling, and they do this naturally in the rooms that they're in anyways. And this for some kids can be as simple as sitting on the floor and doing some high kneeling at their chair. They can put their tablet or their computer up on their chair and they can just sit on the floor while they're listening. It just gives another surface and another opportunity again for movement while they're learning. So another great position that's maybe more achievable for our younger guys is sitting, lying down on their tummies and getting them to prone prop. So prop up on their elbows and listen to something that you're explaining or listen to something that you're saying. So even for some of the kindergartners, if they're doing a story time, you can tell them to lie down on the floor and listen like this and keep their chins up while they're listening to a story. So hopefully this gave you a few ideas of how we can make our virtual environments a little bit more similar to our in-person environments in terms of how we're helping our kids to learn. Thank you so much to all the teachers out there who are working so hard to make online learning helpful and useful and wonderful for our children. I know this is such a hard time for so many parents and caregivers and teachers who all have their own families to worry about and their own jobs to worry about, while also making sure that all of our children are able to participate in virtual learning. So thanks again.